Hey, 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 welcome to the Push Call. This is National Sales Director Jamie Vrenios, and I am so excited that you joined us tonight. Oh, my goodness. We still have so much time in the month of December to make this December a month to remember. And I am so excited to be able to introduce our next speaker, which is a very dear, dear friend of mine, Otten Sweeney. And I have watched her throughout the years do magnificent things in this business. And, I remember when she was crowned queen of the seminar and had been through so much, and I'm sure she'll probably share maybe a little bit of that, had been through so much with her son and just the amazing things that God did through her and through her family, and just the testimony of what God can do and what God will do when we're obedient. And, I remember when she was sharing, how when everything was going on with Jake, that, everything that she had done up until that point was the reason that she was able to be able to walk through that and have the financial security to be able to take care of her family, to take care of her son in an emergency situation. And that's really what it's all about, that when we work when we can, because there's going to be times when life happens. And when it does happen, we're sure glad that we worked when we could. And I've watched her lead and shine over and over and over and over again. She is a leader of leaders in this company and is an inner circle national, that is for sure. And I adore her, and I love her because she stands for truth. She walks in truth, and I know that you are going to be so blessed by everything that she has to share tonight. And I want to tell you a little bit about her. Dawn began building her Mary Kay business in May of 1986. She spent 2.5 years working it part-time, and then she made a full-time commitment in 1988. when she became a sales director. Since then, she earned the following prizes, commissions, and accolades. 14 cars, 12 have been pink Cadillacs, with the latest being the Escalade Hybrid, over 50 carats of diamonds and rings, earrings, bead pins, and bar pins, a 1099 in excess of $100,000 for the last 20 years, the last 3 being over $200,000. Wow. All expense-paid trips and cruises for her and her husband to Beijing, China, England, Germany, Austria, Paris, Portugal, Spain, Hawaii, Switzerland, Scotland, Ireland, and Sydney, Australia, Alaska, Italy, Greece, and Turkey. How big can you dream, right? Her unit has sold in excess of $450,000 in retail product per year since she began, with her highest to date over $1.2 million in Seminar 2002, and of course that's when she was the queen of the seminar. Her unit was number 6 out of over 13,000 units in the country and number 1 in their division for Seminar 2002. Her unit has sold in excess of $450,000 in retail production per year, including 12 out of 15 years qualifying for top director trips, $650,000, and 2 years of the $1 Million Club, $1 million, $50, and $1.2 million. Her national area was recognized for being part of the prestigious Gold Circle, which means that they sell over $250,000 in products a month. Dawn's highest monthly commission check has exceeded $27,000. Her favorite accolades is her Miss Go Give in January of 2000. Dawn has been married to Larry for 27 years, and they have 2 children, Jake, who's 23, recently graduated from Western Michigan University debt-free because of Mary Kay, and her daughter, Alden, 21, who earned her first Mary Kay car and built a unit in her first 5.5 months of her business while being a full-time student at Western Michigan University. She's currently the youngest senior Cadillac sales director in Michigan. And so I want to bring her on, Otten Sweeney.
Thank you. Thank you, Jamie. I wish you were sitting right here because I love you, and I thank you for always following what God says, and thank you for inviting me and all the women that are part of this, because you are walking out God's calling. And I love being on this mission of equipping leaders for Mary Kay and for the kingdom with you and Beth and LaRonda. I appreciate you. I love you, and you make me better, and you sharpen me, and you encourage me to step it up 10 notches, and I love that about you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And Jamie was reminding me of the year when my son had surgery, and what set us up for, and you guys, you're being set up for your future right now. This push program, if you allow it, I know that every single person that's participating in this will be able to look back in retrospect and say, oh my gosh, like that was such a setup to prepare me for blank. And none of us know what blank is going to be. And that year was actually 9/11. We were in Europe for the Mary Kay trips. They used to be longer, so we had already been gone almost 2 weeks in Scotland and Ireland. It was my first $1 million year. We had just gone my first $1 million dinner, $1 million pajama party, and the next day was 9/11. And then we were over in Europe still for 5-6 more days until we could get back to the United States. So that was in September of that year. Honestly, that was, looking back, probably one of the most challenging seasons of my marriage. And those of you who've been married more than 10 seconds know that there's some times that are easier and some times that are more challenging. And then in November and December of that year, I had pneumonia, which I have been blessed with excellent health. And I no longer take it for granted because I found out what it's like to not have good health. But that was a time period that I had to get real quiet and spend lots of time in the Word, and also take a look at how I was taking care of this temple that God wants to work through, and really now have a very preventative, holistic healthcare approach for my whole family because of that. And then my son, we found out, needed open heart surgery at 11 years of age, which when he had surgery as a baby, they had told us that that would be it. He wouldn't have it again. So January of that year, we found out that it was the last day of the seminar year that he was going to have open heart surgery. And that year we had 6 offspring directors. We did just shy of $1.2 million. It was like 1,000 short of that. But I wasn't in my office the last day of the month. I wasn't really in my office. I wasn't in my office the last week physically at all at the hospital for the prep and then the surgery. But really the 6 months prior, like emotionally, was with our family, just really anchoring into the Lord so that we could go into this not with a scared child and not with a scared parent. And I mean, when Jamie says we work when we can, you guys, what's when we can? Right now there's people who are not working because it's Christmas. What is that? That's not working when you can. I mean, Christmas is not a catastrophe. It's not a tragedy. It's planned. We know when Christmas is every single year. When we can is around life. It's during holidays. It's during transitional times of life, when our kids get married, when our kids go to college, when our kids are in travel sports. When we can is when people are sick, when our kids are behaving and misbehaving, and when our husbands are behaving and misbehaving, and when finances are good and not good. When we can really is all the time, except when there is a tragedy outside of your control. And a tragedy is an untimely death. It is, it's something that really is outside your control. It's not life. I mean, moving, graduations, that's life. And so if you will allow this program to push you into a mindset that you work it when you can, I guarantee you it'll take care of you when you can't during those times. It was really just miraculous to see what God did in that year when I worked less than I ever have in my Mary Kay business. And I really saw what it looked like when, God got all the glory, because I didn't do anything that year, but my people were trained up. I had systems in place. I had an assistant 40 hours a week. Kate was talking to people 40 hours a week. My directors, my people could all be plugged in to meetings. Those 6 directors, they offsprung not because I did that for them. They rose up just like you are going to. But, you guys, that's a gift we have in Mary Kay when we can. So in December, think of that. Think of that. When we can, we have a gift. Christmas, I love this holiday. So much to celebrate. My birthday is next week. I think Jamie's birthday is in December. We have lots to celebrate in December, but we can work this whole month. So what my job is today is to share with you creating a strategic mindset and a teachable spirit. And I am just praying that God guides this and it falls on fertile soil, because I have so much I want to share. I feel like I could explode, and I want you to get off this call and have the tools to develop a strategy for between now and the 15th of December, the 16th to the 24th, and then the 26th to the end. And I also want you to have a clear understanding of what it means to have a teachable spirit. I'm going to start off by sharing with you, this is a resource that I have been reading through this last week from Lifeway. It's called Disciples Path, a practical guide to disciple making, and I've been reading it because it's a new resource. It's a new set of resources. This is a kind of an overview of the resources for discipling, and I was given it to read for my director's Bible study that we do, and we're figuring out what our next, our curriculum is going to be in the new year. And as I was reading this on the airplane this past weekend to and from Mobile, I went, oh my gosh, this is exactly what we do in Mary Kay, and this is such a helpful perspective. So I want to share a couple of these paragraphs with you, and then we're going to talk about applying this in your Mary Kay business. And chapter 1 is, what is a disciple? It says, whenever we lead, a necessity occurs that is often overlooked. We need to define our terms. We are regularly in churches across the country and speaking at conferences in which no one in the room has taken the time to define what he means when he uses the word disciple. When that happens, we often build up a collection of buzzwords, and everyone we lead just nods their heads in support of our impassioned teaching. When it comes to identifying the meaning of the word disciple, I know that we can do better. And I thought that was relevant because we have terms in Mary Kay like coaching and being teachable and strategy. And if we don't define those, sometimes we're just saying all this stuff, but we're not really acknowledging what it means so we can apply it. He shares in the book Transformational Discipleship, how to define the word disciple was key to the process. In the Greek language, the word can be understood as pupil, apprentice, or learner. It was and is a term that has a generic sense to it. In fact, one could say that everyone is a disciple. The question is simply about what subject or to whom are we a disciple. The meaning of the word is simple, but the impact of the concept is life-altering. When a person becomes a disciple of Jesus, it indicates that he or she has become his follower. We surrender our lives for Christ to be our master, the one who pays for our sin and establishes our relationship with God. Our faith in his work makes us his disciples. So then, what does a disciple do? It is all determined by how we follow. Jesus taught that the choice is to whom a disciple will follow affects everything. In Luke 6:39 through 40, it reads, he also told them a parable. Can the blind guide the blind? Won't they both fall into a pit? A disciple is not above his teacher, but everyone who is fully trained will be like his teacher. The parable and explanation give us the sense that discipleship happens and that it has consequences. When we give our lives over to someone as blind as we are, all of us wind up in a ditch. The implication is that we need to seek a master that is greater than us so we can be led toward life rather than toward ruin. It is why we chose Jesus. When we became his disciple, the passage above helps us to see that 3 things characterize the life of a disciple. Discipleship is about being led in a direction, trained in the truth, informed in our character. First, being a disciple is about being led. In their book on the subject, Henry Blackaby and Richard Blackaby describe spiritual leadership as moving people on to God's agenda. Leadership and discipleship are very close concepts in this arena. They both involve guiding people from one place to another. In some cases, leadership is about physically moving people to action or to a new place. With the specific idea of being a disciple, it means being led and following after someone, often in a new direction. Being a disciple means making the choice to be led. In Jesus' parable, he uses a negative example about the blind following the blind to illustrate the role of a disciple. Disciples are followers. They must willingly take the hand of a guide and go where they are led. In the discipleship process, a disciple is a willing follower. As we help people understand what it looks like to become a disciple, they must see followership as a new way of life. But we are not dealing with blind men following blind men. Instead, a new disciple of Jesus is taking the hand of a person who can see where he or she is going. Disciples may be able to see now, but they rarely know where to go. They need to willingly hold out their hands to another and allow themselves to be led. It is an act of humility and teachableness. And you guys, I thought that was so relevant because we talk a lot about leadership in our business, and he says leadership and discipleship are very close concepts. They both involve guiding people from one place to another. Leadership is about physically moving people to action or to a new place. So obviously, we can relate to that in our Mary Kay business. With the specific idea of being a disciple, it means being led and following after someone, often in a new direction. Being a disciple means making the choice to be led. And you guys, that's something that I wanted to define. I thought it's important for you to hear because in this push program, we're raising you up to lead. But to be raised up to be led, you have to be a disciple. You have to be a willing learner. It's a choice to be led. First off, you have to choose who you're following. Obviously, as a Christ follower, we're choosing to follow Jesus, as that's what a Christian is, a Christ follower, disciple of Jesus. In our business, we are, and please don't, in any way misunderstand this. When I say we're a disciple of Mary Kay Ash's teachings, we are not worshiping Mary Kay Ash. We are following along, and we're a learner, an apprentice, a pupil. So disciple I'm using with you guys, but you probably wouldn't in our day and age just use that word casually if people don't understand it, because they could, if taken out of context, misunderstand that. But I want you guys to get a handle on this, because if you have availed yourself of this push program, I believe that you want to be led. But in our society, there's a natural bent towards being independent versus interdependent. There's a bent towards being self-confident versus God-confident. There's a push, towards, in Mary Kay, it's your own business. You can do what you want. But you guys, people have taken that to such an extreme that it's like a spirit of lawlessness. And this really resonated with me today as we were watching Beth Moore do a training in our Director's Bible Study. If any of you have done Children of the Light, I think it's called, Thessalonians 1 and 2 study. And in Thessalonians 2, when you're talking about the end times, and there's a spirit of lawlessness that increases as we go towards the end times. Well, you guys, we can see that now. I can see that in our Mary Kay business. She was sharing how, lawlessness just increases. It means there's no rules. Everyone makes up the rules that are best for them. And so it's all about comfort and convenience. And, then we get all sorts of problems that we can see on the news every single day. But you guys, that is spilling over into our Mary Kay business, because there's a spirit of lawlessness that no one wants rules. They don't want accountability. It's all about, I can do whatever I want. I mean, I've had, back in the day when I started, when Debbie Moore told me that you go out in the field and observe 2 skincare classes. Debbie Moore didn't volunteer to do any parties for me, and I wouldn't have expected her to. She said you go out in the field, watch 2 people do parties, and then you book 8 to hold 5. I was working 80 hours a week. I had posted a check for my starter kit. And when she told me about inventory, it kind of scared me. Yes, getting more debt to get out of debt. I had to get my head around being, making a business decision versus thinking like a consumer. But I was teachable. And I wanted what she had, and I looked to her. I wanted to be discipled by her. I wanted to be taught by her. I wanted to be mentored by her, coached by her. We use those terms interchangeably. But I was willing to be led. Whereas I've done orientations in the last couple years, and you'll go through the orientation, and I do the same orientation. I think we get better with our communication skills as we go on in this business. And I've had people say, well, you go through the whole thing. No, I'm just going to, use Section 2. I'm not going to get inventory. I mean, not even like I'm scared, I can't. No, I'm just flat out not going to. I'm like, okay, well, let me know how that works for you. You guys, as soon as I sense an unteachable spirit, I will give them an opportunity to look at things a different way. But then if they are unwilling to, I'm not going to invest any more time there, because you cannot, if people, even if they want you to lead them, to move them from one place to the next, If they are unwilling to be led, which it's an act of humility and teachableness, regardless of where they've come from in their life or their experience or their education, regardless of where you're at in your Mary Kay business, we all have to be willing to be led, which is an act of humility and teachableness. Also, when it shared the blind leading the blind, oh my gosh, you guys, how many, consultants and directors are taking advice? They're following after. They're apprenticing after people who have quit, people who are not in the place that they want to be in. Really the amount of time that consultants and directors are spending with their peers or people below them on the career path is a huge part of why they're at where they're at. Back in the day, we didn't have the internet, so I couldn't vicariously, watch other people's lives on Facebook. That doesn't count. That's not being discipled. And the only person I was in contact with was my adopted director once a week at success meetings, and then Debbie Moore. I was with her 2 weeks. But then after that, I talked to her probably once a month because phone calls were really expensive and you only talked after 9 p.m. at night, and there was a 3-hour time change. And so in between there, I was reading my consultant's guide, I was doing my parties, I was getting my Applause magazine and my monthly newsletter. But she was the only person that I was being discipled by in Mary Kay. There was a huge advantage because the people who I see, stuck or not going where they want to go, it's their circle of influence who's sticking them there. The blind leading the blind, just, running you off into a ditch. Being a disciple means that if you see followership as a new way of life, for you to push through from where you're at now to where you want to go, it's going to be a new way of life. So in December, if you've worked for 3 days of December, just finished your star and then been off for the rest of the month, you know what? This is going to be a new way of life for you in December. Because you know what, as top directors and as nationals, even as a consultant, even as a brand new director, I always enjoyed Christmas. And I've always enjoyed the holidays and family vacations and my family. I think my daughter wanting to be the youngest national sales director, that's a testimony to how I've invested my time over these years. My dad was a really successful accountant, a partner when he was in his early 40s and provided for us financially very well, but didn't see him a lot. Had great vacations and saw him then, but rest of the time, my mom had the responsibility of parenting. I wanted the fruits of his business, but I didn't want that business. In Mary Kay, we're seeing lots of daughters become top directors and national sales directors. So you cannot tell me, my daughter is so confused. I have a Growing Up Pink hotline. You can look on my website and dial in and listen to my daughter sharing her story and lessons growing up pink. But the look of confusion on her face when people will say, well, I can't earn my car. I can't become a sales director. I, can't move up the career path because, it's God's family career and, I have these kids. And my daughter's so confused when people say that because she's like, first off, what are they saying? Like, I didn't have a mom raising me or what? She goes, but I don't understand what they're saying. I don't get it. Like, you worked your business at a much higher level and we saw you all the time that we wanted to see you. So, you guys, that's a lie to believe that, this is going to be a new way of life, and I will tell you it will be a better way of life, but the transition of getting from where you're at now to there, it is going to be a push, and it is going to be growth, and it is going to be uncomfortable. But I do want you to look at, what are you going to do different this month to get different results than you did last month and the month before and last December? Because you have to do things differently. And if you think you're just going to add on and push through and do more activity in December, but do everything else, bake all the same cookies, do all the same things that stressed you out last December, if you were stressed out, there's some women that are so stressed in December, and it's so sad to me that they can't enjoy it. All they talk about is how busy and I mean, they're just complaining about it all month long. I mean, it's a horrible way to live. But if you think you're going to do all those things and it stressed you out so much last December, and now you're going to, have this magnificent growth in your Mary Kay business, and you're going to do all those things and all this extra Mary Kay activity, you guys, that's unrealistic. It really, and that's not how you're being discipled. Look at the people that are in the positions that you want to be in, and we're going to walk you through this process. We really will. Okay. Let's, in our society, so we don't really talk about in Mary Kay, discipling and being a disciple, but I hope that was helpful because that was very enlightening for me when I was reading through that. So I'm hoping that was helpful for you. But in our business, we talk more about coaching, being coached. So you're discipling, you're coaching. So in our business, there's times that you're being coached, and there's times that you're coaching. So as a consultant, brand new, you're being coached. But then as soon as you have team members, you start to do some coaching. And then sales directors, I want you to listen to this because you're being coached to move up the career path by your national, to move up to a national position or top director position or whatever God has laid on your heart, because some of you are supposed to be nationals and some of you are supposed to find nationals. So all of us are being coached and coaching. So let's talk about being coached. First off, you pick your guide. We've picked, all four of us nationals have picked Jesus Christ spiritually and Mary Kay for business practices. Who are you allowing to coach you? We put Larry and Julius both in front of you. They're followers of Christ, and they pointed you to him and to Mary Kay Ash, not to them. And you guys, be very cautious of being coached by those who have never built a Mary Kay business, from starter kit to where you want to go. And I love that both of them, I've heard just great things, and so many of you sharing what you've already applied and how they changed you. But I listened very carefully to both of them, and I trust, Jamie, you have to know, I do not put my people in front of just any random person, because so many of the coaches out there that are outside of Mary Kay, they're pointing you to them because they need you to need them, because that's how they make their money. In Mary Kay, I love that I don't need my people. I love my people, but I want them to be God's best version of them. That's my reward, more so than any paycheck. And Mary Kay has this set up that if you are focusing on serving others, you are going to be paid handsomely. That's not true of the general coaching population. Be very cautious also, even in our Mary Kay business, just because someone has a director suit on or a national suit on. If what they say is not in line with Mary Kay's principles, and if what they say is not in line with God's word, it's not the truth. I don't care what suit they have on. I've taught my kids this from a young age. I don't care if a pastor says it or the Pope or their principal. I don't care if a parent says it in Mary Kay. I don't care if a director or a national, an inner circle national, or someone at Mary Kay corporate. If it doesn't line up with God's word, it's not the truth. Being coached. When you're being coached, let's talk about that. It's not comfortable. Think of if you've ever gone to a Jenny Craig or a Weight Watchers, or you've gone to the gym and you've had a coach versus just working out on your own. If you have kids or you've ever had a trainer, my husband's a strength and conditioning coach. So if you've ever been coached, it's an uncomfortable process. It's not fun to change your eating habits. It's not fun to change your exercising habits. It's not kids, if they need help in school. My son needed a lot of help with reading in second grade. So you don't really call them coaches, but they are tutors. And that it's never comfortable, but you bring them into your life. The coach helps you get from one point to the next. It's not comfortable. And honestly, sometimes it can be really uncomfortable to the point that it makes you throw up. And we've, talked about this a lot in my area, and I gave all of my directors little pink puke buckets to represent their pink Cadillacs. And at my leadership advances, everyone got red or blue for their blue director suits, little buckets. I love the Home Depot ones that say, let's do this. It's a big bucket. It's going to be so uncomfortable that you feel like being sick, and that's a good thing. But you guys, in a society where people want to be comfortable, and if there's lawlessness, it's all there's no rules. They make up their own rules, and rules make you uncomfortable. And so, and accountability makes people uncomfortable. And so people don't like this. Like, they can look at that as a bad thing. You guys, humans do so much better with accountability. We screw up everything without accountability. No one achieves anything great without being accountable to someone. First and foremost, God, but then also humans. Accountability is a necessity. There has to be a distance that you're measuring so that you know when you fall short. You know when, you need to make course corrections. And you guys, accountability doesn't mean that you're just accountable when things are good. When you are being coached, if you just, fell off the wagon and if you're in AA, you fell off the wagon with your alcohol or drugs or food or exercise or Mary Kay. You guys, your coach isn't mad at you. Don't not communicate because you think that you're embarrassed, you're scared. Your coach is not mad. She wants you. Coaches want to be coaches. Those who are directors understand that. Those of you who want to be directors understand that. We can't help you. Do not believe that lie that we're mad or disappointed. Your coach is not. There's no way that she can coach you if you sit there and don't communicate. Accountability it's critical. Jamie shared on the director's push call that you're in the top 25% just showing up. You're in the top 15% if you show up with a plan. You're in the top 10% if you show up with the plan and work it. And you're in the top 3 to 5% if you show up with the plan, work it, and you're accountable. And when people say that, she just doesn't understand, you just don't understand, you guys, that's a cop-out. No, your coach understands way more than you know. She understands exactly because she's already walked through it. See, in Mary Kay, you're not in a leadership position until you've already been discipled, and then you get to disciple. It's an apprenticeship. You don't get into these positions because of your education or who you know. Doesn't happen. Accountability, it necessitates deadlines. 12:15. Everyone on this call needs to be a star. You have to be a star to go into DIQ. Being a star consultant is the minimum level of activity. So that's a non-negotiable, 12:15. How many faces, parties, agreements, the leadership parties, your mid-year goals, your new director goals, your next car. You guys, push is not going to have an impact that you desire regardless of how many paradigm shifts you have unless you do more. And it's probably going to be a lot more because, honestly, pushing out a new life, giving birth to a dream, it's not pretty. Being coached means that you respect your coach and want to show your coach gratefulness. That means your word's your bond. I always wanted to, and still do, I want to build an inner circle national area in this next, 4 years longest, but I want to do it ASAP because I want to do that as a gift to Debbie Moore. That's going to impact her retirement. That's a way of me saying thank you for what she has poured into my life and my family's life. You guys, I'm forever grateful that she had Nancy Murata come and talk to me in a mall. Forever grateful. My salvation came in my starter kit. So I want to show her my gratefulness. And you do that with your word being your bond. We will build a national area. We will. Debbie has my word on that. It's following through on your word. You pick your words carefully then. Make your plans according to God confidence, not self-confidence, and his direction versus self-confidence and self-direction. And then you follow through on it. My husband says what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And sometimes that's all. You just got to hold on to that. What does not kill you makes you stronger. What's the grit factor? Grit is something that I'm going to see this through. We see grit when people are in their last day of car qualifications, their last month, week, day, hour of DIQ, getting to your red jacket, getting your star done. Grit. In high schools in our country now, they're starting to do tests to see what the grit factor is for kids, because they've found a lot of research has been done on this. If you Google grit, you're going to see some research on it, that a predicting factor of success is a child's grit factor at a far higher rate than their ACT, SAT, and grades. Those have a far less impact on their success in life than their grit factor. And so why do some people bail out and just quit so easy? Why does someone, they share with you, they get a starter kit and they need this business desperately for the flexibility and the income potential. And then, they don't even have one party yet and they're quitting. I'm like, what are you quitting? You're not quitting Mary Kay. Honestly, when people are quitting, for the most part, they're not quitting Mary Kay because they have not even walked it out at all, whether it is the consultant position or the directorship position. When someone quits a position at the minimum level, you're quitting that position. You're not really quitting what Mary Kay had to offer you. You're not quitting my position. So what's your grit factor? I've been doing yoga the last 3 years for stretching and not as a religion, and it's some of the best exercise. My husband in exercise physiology said if you could do one thing as you age, yoga is probably would be it. But I love it because it pushes you physically to another level. And I like stretching myself because when I stretch myself at any level, it stretches me all the way around, whether it's spiritually stretching me, whether it's physically stretching me, business-wise stretching me. So what's your grit factor? Some of you guys bail out way too fast, so maybe that's what you're going to prove to yourself, that you're not a quitter. You follow it through. You do not give in because, you guys, you have it inside of you. It's a learned response to quit. Little kids don't quit. If they did, they would never learn to walk. They would never learn to swim. They would never learn to feed themselves. They would never learn to read. We learn to quit. So if you have gone through, maybe you've been brought into Mary Kay to get your grittiness back. Because if you're a mom, you better get gritty. Because I will tell you, it breaks my heart when I see moms bail out on goals, post goals for their family, and repeatedly quit on them. Repeatedly. You guys, that's what you're modeling to your kids. And if grit factor is so important, then we're doing our children a huge disservice. I was taught in Mary Kay, the only way you can fail at this is to quit. And I took that to heart. When Debbie Moore said that 28 years ago, I can see her little ringed finger pointing at the new consultant training packet that, in your first year you don't consider it, but really anywhere along the line, the only way you can fail is to quit. And are there times that you want to quit or you feel like quitting? Would be easier to quit? Yes. It'd be easier for me to quit right now. It'd be easier for all of us to quit right now. But, if quitting is not an option, take it out of the equation. If you're a brand new consultant on the phone, you're going to save yourself so much stress if quitting's not an option. Because I will tell you what people do when quitting's an option, then you have to decide how you're going to tell your recruiter that you're going to quit. I can't imagine calling Debbie Moore right now and saying, oh, yeah, I'm quitting. Oh, I can't even imagine that conversation. I'd rather work through whatever. That's just not going to be fun conversation. I can't imagine calling Jamie or Beth or LaRonda. You guys, those are the kind of friends that you want to have. If I called any of them up, seriously, I would get a butt chewing, I would get a sharpening, I would get a breathing into, a raising up, a stretching. I can count on them for that, and they can count on me for the same. Those are the kind of friends that you want, not, oh, yeah, you're right. If people tell you that, and it's not in line with the dreams and goals that God's laid on your heart, those are people you're following the blind right into the ditch. You're following the blind into the ditch. If quitting's not an option, then what are your next choices? Then you have to figure out how you get more things on your books, how you keep more things on your books, how you get in front of the people to find the people who are supposed to be following you. When you're being coached, pay attention to when your coach says something that you automatically want to argue with or defend, that it just kind of, like you don't like her for saying that, or it just feels uncomfortable. It may be a conviction. And what I find is that with myself personally, when there's something that I automatically, like almost a knee-jerk reaction, and I want to defend my position, and you say but, generally whatever I put after the but is an excuse. And what I'm doing is I'm decorating my cage. I'm padding my cage up. I'm, making it more comfortable. I'm making it prettier. But the fact of the matter is it's still a cage if, what they're sharing with me is in line with what God's called me to do. But we naturally, in our human nature, are going to bend towards the comfort and convenience and staying the same versus the new way of life. So many times that inkling to, and I shared with you at the beginning of the push program when Jamie said, hey, do you want to do this? And she said 10 o'clock, and I'm like, ugh, 10 o'clock. I don't like 10 o'clock Eastern time. I'll get up at 4:30, but 10 o'clock, oh. And I look back now, I go, seriously? Like, that's so pathetic. I can't even believe that I thought that. But you guys, being part of this was in line with the direction that God's calling me and equipping me. And so it was in line by my natural reaction. Then it was a huge conviction. We rationalize and we don't change. I guess I encourage you to pay attention to that. If it is in line with the goal, that's why she's your coach. A couple of years ago, and I've used this story many times, but I think it's helpful. My husband and I were watching the girls' softball finals, collegiate finals, and Michigan was playing Tennessee, and Tennessee was losing, and they were supposed to be winning the whole national title, and they had to win this division then to go on to California for the national title. And they had lost a couple of games, and they showed a conversation between the coach and the pitcher. And so this is like an 18-year-old girl, it's a college athlete, and the coach, called the pitcher in, and she said, what's going on? Like, a pitcher and softball game, baseball game is like the quarterback. So, like, what's going on here? And, in your business, it's you as sales director and it's you as the consultant because you have a team, but you are the quarterback. You are the coach. You are the pitcher. And, you're not only the star player, but you're the coach, too. And the coach said to the player, what's going on? Like, this is not working. We got to change something here. And the player said, I'm doing my best. And the coach said, well, your team's depending on you. The program's depending on you. Your scholarship's depending on you. Your best is not good enough. So get out there and win. And when she said that, this was like in June a couple of years ago, and when she said that, I just went, oh my gosh, that's so good if your best isn't good enough. Because you guys, your best got you to where you're at right now. If you're on push, you're either a new consultant who came into this, Mary Kay, and you want to be great. You didn't come in to be, just to see how little you could do just to get by. That's not how you're wired. And if you're in Mary Kay, you're in push because you want to move forward. But your best has gotten you to where you're at. It's not going to get you to the next place. So I started asking myself, first off, I just wanted to put it out there because I'm like, oh my gosh, I want people to hear this. If your best isn't good enough, come on, team, let's do this in June. But what I have realized when God is teaching me, first, he needs to teach me, and I need to walk it out, and then I can teach it to others. Because when you point your finger, like when we're at church and we're elbowing our husband or we're taking down the message for someone else, sometimes we need to take the message for ourselves. And so I started to ask myself, and for 90 days before I laid this out with my area, if my best is not good enough. And you guys, when you sit down with that attitude versus saying, I'm doing my best, because you guys, when you say I'm doing my best, it's like God's not going to give you any more insight. It's almost like you're closing yourself off. There's no more revelation because you're saying, I can't do any more. Basically, I mean, it's prideful because it's all about you and, your strength. And, I mean, there's more than enough of God to do everything that you need to do, more than enough time, energy, people, production, money, resources, etc. But if my best isn't good enough, oh my gosh, I started asking myself that, and God would just give me a totally different way to look at things, a new person to help me free up time in one area of life so I could use it in a different area. Start asking yourself that. If my best is not good enough, what do I have to change? Now, let's talk about being the coach. So, you're a senior moving to red or red to on-target car, DIQ, directors to the next level. Coaching, and what I have found in Mary Kay, we have lots of teachers. And so, we talk about teaching and coaching synonymously, but I have to tell you that what I'm finding is that educators tend to be very good at learning our business from the beginning because they're great students, and they are rule followers. And so they'll do their perfect and power start, and they'll do their practice interviews, and they'll get into their red jackets, and they even can get into directorship in CAR. But once they're moving up into directorship, then there is a challenge because teachers and coaches differ in that a teacher's responsibility is for that classroom, and so many of those kids have to pass or you're going to lose your job. With coaching, they have the ability to pick a new team all the time. If the people, they're not stuck with the same people just showing up at practice, because the kids who don't really want to play don't show up at practice, and the coach does not go and drag people off the couch that want to play video games instead and beg them to work. Seriously, if your team is not showing up at meetings, does not want to do anything, isn't doing anything, when people say, well, if I could just get these 3 people to order, I'd be in my red jacket. Well, share with me. I mean, if they've been coached and they've been given the opportunity to sell, to get inventoried, to build their business, and they're not making that choice, you're not their teacher, you're their coach, and they're on the couch playing video games. They may want to play, but they're playing video games. They may want to make money, but they are not making the choices that are congruent to that. So your job is to coach and to coach those who show up at practice. Practice our meetings, practice our push calls, practice this leadership conference. It's your January Get Your Year in Gear event. It's the parties at leadership. It's LaRhonda's debut. You guys fly in, drive in. You can go onto her website. I have it posted on my website. I bet Beth and Jamie do too. That's showing up for practice. That's, being around, the coaches that you want to be like. So coaching is very different than teaching. Something that may be helpful for you is, I hear people, talking about, I need to coach my team more, the directors or the consultants. And I agree that we want to be the best coaches that we can, but you guys want to pay attention to soil conditions. You heard Larry talk about to go through the many to find the few. And I look at that like spreading seed. Jesus talks about the parable of the soils and the seed, and so in Jesus talks about the gospel and the seed going out. In Mary Kay, our seed is the product, and our seed is the opportunity. And our product is amazing, and our opportunity is amazing. Like, we have great seed. We don't need to change anything with the seed, but there's different soil conditions. And some soil is, it's like cement. It's really hard. Like, the seed just lands there and doesn't do anything. Those are the people that they can try the product or they won't even try the product. And, I just wash my face with olive oil or whatever, and you're looking at them going, oh, yeah, yep, may want to try it sometime while you're a parent. Or, people who try the product and no, there's no reception or the opportunity, just flatline, no reception whatsoever. Now, you want to make sure that there's, what LaRhonda said, you can't be that dull. I love that when she was talking about designing your passionate eye story. We have to make sure that, their response isn't based on us being energyless or passionless or visionless. But if you are doing the best job you can, it's not the words you use, it's your heart condition that makes a difference there, and letting it show on the outside so people can tell by the look on your face. But some seeds just land on cement, and then some land on ground, and it looks like it's taking a little bit of root, like they get excited at the event, but then the next day you can't find them, so they don't get their starter kit. Or then the third kind of soil is it takes root for a while until it gets strangled out by the cares of the world. And so those are the people that they start doing their business, but then, all of a sudden they started their business because they want to get out of their other job, but then they're quitting their business because of their other job makes them too busy. Or they want to do their business so that their husband has more flexibility because really he doesn't get to see the kids very much, or has this crazy busy schedule, or doesn't really love it. It's aging him, but then that's why she's getting out of the business. That's cares of the world. And then the fourth soil condition produces a harvest, thousandfold sometimes. So, in our business, the only way you're going to get more harvest is to plant more seeds. But you look at the soil condition to know where you coach. Because if a seed is on cement, like you could sit there, and I don't care how good of a coach you are, Jamie, myself, LaRonda, and Beth can sit around a table with a person who has the soil of cement, and we're not going to have any more luck than you are making that seed grow. It's just not going to. I heard Bill Hybels share. He's a senior pastor at Willow Creek Church, and they do a global leadership summit in August that I highly recommend. Talk about sharpening your brain and your heart and your business skills. It's called Global Leadership Summit. And he was talking a couple years ago about how he would get so frustrated by how many people were coming to church but not seeing transformation in their life, or coming to church and then just not showing up. And he goes, what I realized is that Jesus tells us his math. Jesus' math was 75% of the seeds that are planted produce no harvest. The cement, the birds take the seeds away, the drowned, killed by the cares of the world. Only 25% of the seeds that Jesus was talking about planting would produce a harvest. He goes, who am I to think that I'm going to do better math than Jesus? Like, do we really think that we're going to get a better math equation than Jesus does? If that's the math equation, for eternity and salvation and transformation, we're probably not going to expect a better one, Mary Kay, really. So, to me, that makes it real easy. If you have three people and there's four soil conditions, you may not even have the person that produces a harvest. So it's not your people that are causing your frustration, it's your expectation that's causing your frustration. So hopefully that analogy can be helpful. And that goes along perfectly with what Larry said, reach the many to find the few. So hopefully you guys, that helped you with the teachable spirit, just what discipling looks like and that willingness to be led. And, I just know in Mary Kay, women don't go into a directorship or a national position. They may go into it for selfish motives, but no one stays there and can move up the career path with selfish motives. God weeds those people out. He really does. And so, your leaders, I can guarantee you the four nationals that are doing this for you, we want nothing more than for you to reach your dreams and your goals. And we're going to provide you with all the coaching that you need. You just have to provide that teachable spirit. And then, look for other women who also have a teachable spirit. Honestly, it stands out in this day and age. It really does. So on one hand, it's kind of distressing and depressing to see that spirit of lawlessness increasing. But on the other hand, the people who do have a teachable spirit, it stands out, kind of like the lines are being drawn. And so you can see the soil conditions a lot more clearly than I think we ever have been able to. Let's talk about a strategic mindset. I want to give you some strategy that can be helpful for you as you are putting your plan together for the rest of this month. And, gosh, by the time we're at the end of this month, we're halfway through our PUSH program. Do know that I'm going to go through this, and if you want to hear more of this, I don't have a couple more hours to share with you, but if you go to my name, Dawn Otten Sweeney, just all, no hyphen, no capitals, Dawn Otten Sweeney, .bandcamp, BANDCAMP, bandcamp.com. Bandcamp is like an iTunes, but you can put downloadable audio on there when you don't have a label, and I don't have a label. So my training material is on DawnOttenSweeney.bandcamp.com, but my boot camp series is 6 hours of training, and I go through this formula that I'm going to give you in detail, because you want to be able to be coached, and we talked about being a coach. Now I want to talk about self-coaching, because as a disciple of Christ, when you're new, I remember being, brand new follower of Christ, and, I had a life application Bible, and I would spend as much time reading the bottom of it, the life application part, as I did the Bible verse. And then the Experiencing God workbook I did on my own for probably 5 times in a row at 13 weeks apiece. That's a Henry Blackaby resource that just to answer questions. And then I did Bible studies. And then, I needed far more guidance from people. Whereas now I know how to go to God to get that guidance first and foremost. In Mary Kay, when you start off, a consultant is taught, we go through the power start, the perfect start, your pearls, or ready right now, get 10 people, your star in, go into DIQ. Directors, we have the new director programs, but then, there's new directors that say, I want a Cadillac, I want to be Dean's List, I want to be number 1 in my class. But at each of the stages, you will need more guidance from people. But then in all of these arenas of our life, spiritually, as a consultant, as a director, you got to mature. And honestly, because I know you're on push because you want us to be honest. Honestly, we have a bunch of teenage consultant and directors. Teenagers, if you guys have had teenagers or have teenagers, they argue with you. I mean, if you guys have had teenagers, I remember the arguments of just like going in circles, but, defending their position, and you're sitting there as a parent going, you're not going to win this. Like, you're just not. Like, no, you're not going to do it. It's not in your best interest. But they're digging in and defending their position, even though it's not in their best interest. They're not listening to their coach/parents. Or they'll go, I didn't know. Like, I didn't know that paper was due. I didn't know the speed limit was 50. I didn't know their parents weren't home. I didn't know blank. You guys, I don't know is inexcusable in Mary Kay these days. Even if you just bought your starter kit today, maybe then. Because if you've done orientation, you know where to find the resources. You know where to go to Mary Kay in Touch, which has everything under the sun plus some. Each of us as nationals have websites. We have training. We have books. You have all the resources. I don't know is as inexcusable as a teenager saying I didn't know. And, so seeing consultants and directors waiting to be motivated and inspired, hearing that they haven't done anything because they were disappointed or frustrated, you guys, it's time to grow up. You no longer, I don't know about you guys, but looking back, I would never go back to be a teenager anyways, so let's not linger here. It's really not a fun time. It's like you're rebelling against, the stuff that's probably in your best interest anyways. So I want to give you a formula to help you be an adult. Be a mature, prospering, productive adult versus a teenager. And really, I think I know God gave this to me because I was at a place where I was really frustrated in the coaching process. I was sick of people, doing a perfect start, perfect stop, making a move up the career path and then hitting a wall and not knowing how to coach them past that. And so God gave me this formula. In this formula, you can use to coach yourself and then in coaching your team. And my area right now is going, okay, I'm going to tune out, but I want you guys not to tune out because you never know what you're going to hear that's going to be useful for yourself personally or to pass on. Because I use this, with all my people moving up the career path and with my consultants. And I used to say that you'd use this formula when you were frustrated and feeling like you were doing your best, but not getting the results that you desired. I now encourage you to do this when things are great, because this is how you keep momentum going. When people say, I don't know what I'm doing, it's, how did you do that? I don't know. Well, you guys, again, that's a teenager. We got to figure this out. You have to know because you have to be able to transfer it. And it's kind of like driving your car down the road. It's running, so I'm fine, but you run out of gas then because you didn't look at the gas gauge. These are some gauges to look at to know what's really going on. It's going to help you be able to transfer what you're doing when it's going good and what you have to fix when it's not going good. So when you want to evaluate your business, the number one thing you look at is first numbers. The second thing you look at is target market. The third thing you look at is skill/systems. And the fourth thing you look at is you. And again, I'm going to go through this quickly, and you guys can listen to this on my boot camp downloads, but numbers, the things you'd evaluate, are your number of faces. How many faces have you done so far since Push started? Parties. How many parties? How many recruits? How many new agreements? Unit size for directors. What's your unit size? Where's your unit size going to be? If your numbers are where they needed to be to reach the goals that you wanted, then you go down to target market. If your numbers were not what they needed to be, you plant more seed. You do more numbers, because that's the thing that you can change fastest, and that's the first thing you want to address. The second thing is target market. So let's say you did the numbers. Your unit size has grown by 20. You have put the products in the faces. You've done the parties. You have the personal agreements in. Then we got to look at the target market. Mary Kay's target market are women who hit 3 out of the 5 marketing statistics of 25 to 55 years old, own a home, married, have children, have some education. So if women hit 3 out of those 5, you will recruit 1 out of 5 of them in an interview. You'll sell skincare to 50% of them. But if you're working outside the target market, for instance, when my daughter was in college earning her car, I told her, if you're working with college students, you're going to have 2 to 3 times. And she had over 20-some people to earn her car and over 35 or 40 to become a director because she was working with college students. So if you're outside the target market, you have to do more numbers. Let's say your numbers were in line and your target market. You're hitting 3 out of the 5 marketing statistics for your unit recruits, for your faces, your parties, your recruits. Then we look to skill. Then you look at your dialogues. But remember what Julius was talking about. A lot of people shared with me that him talking about the toolbox. You guys don't need more tools in the toolbox. You need to use the tools that you're using. Gosh, the reason I did my boot camp series like 5 or 6 years ago is because I saw consultants with more tools in their toolbox and doing less with it, having far more resources than I ever had and being far less productive. And, just being like a gerbil on a wheel, going around and around and around, but not getting anywhere. So you look at the skill, and then systems, those are things like a housekeeper, someone to wrap gifts for you, someone to go grocery shopping for you, someone to decorate. Last night I was decorating. I was doing some of it, and I had a girl over here decorating my tree. And so she knows where all my Christmas decorations are now. So in January, she's going to take them all down. So on decorating, laundry, carpool, office help, skincare class setup, customer service, etc., systems. So consultants, generally it'll be a skill-based issue, director systems. The fourth thing is you. And you would be probably an attitude thing, maybe a character adjustment, something that God is changing in you for the leader he's calling you to be, for the people he's calling you to lead. But you guys, normally when people aren't getting results, the first thing they go to is themselves. You're beating yourself up right now. Like, this is where I'm at in December. This is where I'm at in Push. I'm a loser. I'm not doing well. La, la, la. And then if you get past the self-degradation, then you go to, well, I don't know enough. I need more. I need to listen to more push calls. I need to listen. I need more training. Or a director is, okay, I need more help. And then, which most of you do, because you get help for where you're growing to, not where you're at right now. And then once we've learned more and we got our system set up, then we start to address who we're working with. And then the last thing we do are numbers. And that's totally out of order. To make a turnaround and to coach yourself through this process and to coach others, the first thing you look at numbers. And honestly, this cuts down your coaching time with people, because when someone is sitting there disappointed and frustrated that right now, December 10th, they don't have their car qualifications or DIQ in and they put the products on two faces, we don't have to talk about your skill or you or what God's doing in you, because he's always going to be doing something in you. Skills can always be improved. I mean, it's not even necessarily target market. It's flat-out numbers. So you guys, what I want you in conclusion to do with this is, right now we're at the 10th. By the 15th, what's your goal? Star level goal? Number of stars for sales directors? How many new agreements are you going to have in? How many new faces? Then I want you to look at the 16th to the 24th, same thing. New agreements, new faces. And then the 26th to the 31st, new agreements, new faces. You make a plan with the information you've just gotten, because we all just grew up. We all just went from teenagers to adults. You're going to make a plan. You're going to box your director. Directors are going to box your NSD. You have the strategy. I just gave you a strategic mindset. You have the coaches. You know, I believe that you have a teachable spirit. I believe that you are capable of being gritty, because you all can remember a time in your life when you were gritty. I want you to take yourself back to that. We're going to get the grit factor up in you. You have a teachable spirit, or you would not be plugged into push. So what I want to do is pray for you and then say good night, and we'll be back together, directors on Monday, everyone on Wednesday. Okay. Dear Lord Jesus, thank you for this time that we've had together. I just pray for every single woman who's on this line or listens to this call, Lord. First off, I pray for the soil conditions. I pray for just fertile soil, Lord. The seeds that are planted during this call and during this push program, Lord, I pray that they'll be protected. I pray that they'll be watered. I pray that they are landing on fertile soil, God. I just pray that all of us, myself included, will have a more teachable spirit. I pray that you'll answer us when we say that our best is not good enough. What can we do, Lord? I pray that we will be convicted, we will be confirmed where necessary, that we will be equipped by your Holy Spirit. I pray that these women will go out from this call really with just the Christmas spirit, which is of hope, of a baby being born that came to give us salvation, Lord, with a purpose. Each of the women on this call has a purpose. When you made them just like when Jesus came on this earth, with a purpose. God, I pray that they will be purposeful, they will be teachable, they will be encouraged, and they will be hopeful as they proceed into their next week, into this final month of 2014. Okay, you guys. God bless you. I love you. Have an awesome night.